Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Woolley, Managing Director of Cloud9 Spain and member of the LPA. And with me today, I'm honored to have Miguel Manzanares, who's the head guy at Manzanares Abogados, and also Jesús García, who is the owner of Banús Rentals. And the reason we've invited these two along is because we have a very important subject to discuss, which is the impact of the recent legislation on short-term holiday lets. Now, before we get started, I just want to say a couple of thank yous. First one is to Invoga, whose office we are using today, beautiful office on the front in Marbella. And also to you guys, thank you for making the effort to come along. I know it's very busy out there at the moment. We've all got busy schedules, so thank you for sparing the time. But I think it's really important that not only our fellow agents, but also the general public are aware of what's happening in the rental market, because there's a lot happening, a lot of changes, and I thought it was a good idea to bring you two together. One as a champion of the legal profession, another as a champion of the rental market, to see if we can cut through all this red tape and legislation and some of it nonsense, because I can't even get two lawyers to agree at the moment. It's crazy. So let's kick off. Miguel, can I start with you? What's happened that has made everybody so jumpy? What's happened in the short-term rental market and legislation that has changed things?
Well, the short-term rentals have suffered an evolution, and possibly now it's not an evolution but a revolution in what is used to be permitted and now is not permitted. And also we are living in a world of turbulences about interpretations, because the law says what it says, but it's not really that complete, that extends, and doesn't really reflect every potential questions, and therefore a good number of interpretations that are all at the moment in the line of limiting by some people, I would say really in a very excessive way. And basically the situation has changed dramatically since the point of really having a new, I have to say, clarify that this is not retroactive. So therefore, everybody that has a property and that property has registered a license to rent it out is not retroactive. So he's going to keep the right to rent it out short term. That's not a problem. But for new owners, new buyers of properties, they have to really face a new legislation that is limiting in a much more strict way. The biggest one is the need of having an express consent from the community to rent out. Because that is really something that we didn't have to have. Basically, in principle, it was all permitted. And if there is no votation against, you can really register. Now you need to have one piece of paper, one attachment will annex to your request of registration, which is the express consent from your community. And that is where we are falling in a good number of interpretations. Many administrators said, I didn't have any meeting of my community to say yes, therefore I'm not going to produce this paper. Some other people that they had a very wrongly voted community meeting, they say no directly. So that's really where we are now.
It's a bit of a mess, isn't it, Jesus? You've had several instances, I think, on communities, as Miguel was talking about, where they don't seem to know the law, do they? They don't, or they're interpreting it in different ways. Like the express consent, I was under the impression that you had to get the express consent at an AGM or an EGM, which obviously is probably once a year. So if you're wanting to rent out your property now and you want that consent, does that mean that you have to wait for the AGM? I mean, what's your interpretation of it before I go back to Miguel?
My interpretation is that you need to get previously the approvals of the community. This is my interpretation. This is also what all the administrators that I have been in contact has that opinion. And what is happening at the moment, for my experience, is that they are not going to produce any type of document until they don't have an annual, not extraordinary, annual meeting. And in that meeting, they will have, or they will consider, have been told to have one point on the order of the day to discuss it and vote. But before to vote, they are not going to produce. This is not only my interpretation, is what is happening until now.
It's interesting because I have the same situation. I live in Montemayor, and we're a community mainly of villas, and the rental issue has never even been an issue. We have maybe 3 or 4 owners who rent their place out just a little bit, but it's never a disturbance. It's never a problem. It's never on the minutes of any AGM. But we have one owner now who's come to us and said, "Look, I really want to rent my property in the summer. Is that okay?" And we're like, "Yeah, that's fine." But he said, "But I need the express permission of the community through an AGM." And we're like, "Oh, well, we just had our AGM." And he's like, "Well, does that mean I can't rent my property short term?" And our administrator and the lawyer for the administrator said, "That's right, you can't without that express authority." And I got back to him because I'm part of the committee at Montemayor. I got back to him and said, "Look, this is what we've been advised. The problem we have is not, we don't think it will be forbidden. You'll get the consent. The problem for us as a community is going to be getting 60% of the community together to vote yes. It's going to be the apathy of our community because we don't care, So, Miguel, this is what's happening on the ground for Jesús and also for me. I've noticed that we've got a lot of deals pending at the moment, pending the result of the AGM. A lot of potential buyers who are nervous. They don't want to fully commit to a purchase without some safeguards. Can they just go ahead and do it?
Well, I fully agree with Jesús that this is really what is happening, and this is the interpretation of most. I cannot really say all because I don't know them all, of course, but this is really happening. And but my own legal opinion is not that they really have to say no to absolutely everybody until you have the general AGM. Because the law says something. The law says that the community, by 60%, by 3/5, is able to prohibit, to limit. It's not saying is able to permit. That's really a quite important distinction of the Spanish language that says you are able to meet to prohibit. You're not able to meet to permit. If you that really says something by itself, that the community has to meet and prohibit something by a certain quorum, and only after that is when you are able to limit that. So therefore, under my point of view, if you read the law and without really any further interpretation, because the law is very new. We are still on the month of April, and this was enforced only from the 3rd of April, right? So therefore, this didn't escalate to courts and Supreme Courts, and of course, we don't really count with any interpretation of a court. So therefore, everybody is able to interpret and to go to his own conclusions. My conclusion is that, in theory, you have to have that AGM vote to prohibit, and therefore the administrators should really produce a document in that sense. I think what the administrators should really do right now for someone that is requesting that piece of document is saying this community didn't have yet any AGM in which the prohibition has taken place.
Okay.
That's it. So, and this is really absolutely correct to be said, and the administrator shouldn't really say this is prohibited. Because to say prohibited is like saying that the law in general has prohibited everything.
That's the starting point.
To permit if 60% is approving that. So, but of course, this is only my humble opinion.
Okay, but you're the lawyer in the room. Jesús, you're the rental agent. You're looking at me like,
Because I agree with you about that. But what is the opinion of the Junta de Andalucía? Because we need to do the application to get the tourist license to the Junta de Andalucía.
Yeah.
And the Junta de Andalucía at the moment didn't say anything, okay? But as far as I understood in all the different forums where I had been, they are going to ask for a previous authorization. As far as I know, until today. As you say, this is all very new and probably need a little bit more of time to clarify the different interpretation. But until today, the opinion that the Junta de Andalucía have is that they need authorization.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're not. If I'm an owner and I've just bought an apartment on a complex and there's no negative vote about holiday rentals, everything is just allowed, and I buy a property today and I want to rent it, in July and August, I want to start advertising it. Do I go ahead and do it in the absence of a negative vote, or do I have to wait for the authorization? Or obviously I need a tourist license, but if what you're saying is true, that the Junta de Andalucía won't give you a tourist license without an express consent from the community that hasn't come yet, might never come, what do I do?
But you need to have it. You need to have it. So Jesus is right that you need to comply with one requirement, which is having a piece of paper that says you are okay to do it. And that's really the practical situation. Is that the most of the administrators at the moment are not happy to produce that piece of paper. So it's really a kind of a practical, and are they going too far away in a way of interpreting something that, we don't know. But the thing is, you want to rent it, it's not prohibited, there is no general meeting, but you need to comply with one requirement, one piece of paper, together with all your file. And that piece of paper is the express letter from the administrators that are not prepared, are not happy to produce that yet.
But would I need that express consent to get a tourist license right now?
Yeah. You need to have that,
Even on a community that has never got involved with prohibiting holiday rentals.
Correct.
So if the community hasn't voted at an AGM, hasn't given express consent, can I get a letter from the president or the administrator of the community saying, we haven't voted on this issue yet. Here's our provisional consent until this is voted on at an AGM. Can I get that?
Theoretically, yes.
In theory, yes. It's not happening at the moment.
Why is it not happening?
Because the administrator,
they're scared.
At the moment, I only have been talking with 5. I had not been in contact with all. But the one that I have been in contact, you have to wait until the next annual meeting.
Okay.
So in theory, yes. Jesus said that perfectly well. So in theory, yes, but in practice, we are not getting. Of course, we didn't have too much time to do that, right? So, but some few administrators have been approaching to. They do not want to produce that piece of paper until AGM takes place. Although I believe, and this is again my personal opinion, that they should be able to say, this is the consent provisionally. My community didn't vote against, and so. But again, that's my personal opinion on a very early.
Is that because if they give provisional consent without an AGM, and we then go to an AGM and they stop, they don't give express consent, does that mean that my tourist license that I've obtained from the provisional consent then becomes invalid? Is that the legal problem here? Because then there's going to be all sorts of challenges from the community saying that, well, you got your tourist license on the back of a provisional consent from the administrator. We hadn't had an AGM, so now your tourist license needs to be ripped up.
This could be one
reason. Is that
reason.
where we're heading?
This could be one reason, but the second reason is because the interpretation of the administrators say that the law say that you need to have the previous approval.
Yeah.
No provision, no, previous approval. Is the interpretation of the people that I have been in contact with.
Why are they doing this, guys? What's the reason? Is it political? Is it social? Who wants to put their neck on the line? What's going on in this country?
I have my own opinion.
Go on, Jesus. Go on. Let's hear it. Yeah.
Okay.
We can always cut it out.
Okay. No, I think it's very easy to understand. In Spain, we have a big problem. Probably is the main problem at the moment in the country, which is there are not enough houses for local people. Okay, this is the main problem at the moment. So the government had been study what they can do to be able to have more offers of long-term rentals on the market, to be able to reduce the impact on the local people. And they do think that making more difficult to the owners to do holiday rentals, these properties could go to the market for long-term rentals. This is the theory. In Spain, I'm going to give you some data. Almost 70, I will say 65% of the holiday rentals with license is called specific vivienda de uso turístico. They are on the coast, and they are second homes, and Marbella is a very easy and clear example. The rest are in big cities like Madrid, Barcelona, Malaga, okay? I'm not going to talk about the problem in Malaga and Madrid because we can be here for hours, and because we are talking the problem in Marbella, okay? But in Marbella, I think most of the license, recently the town hall did a study through the University of Malaga and give a picture that we all know. And most of the holiday rentals are in areas as Nueva Andalucía, Puerto Banús, San Pedro, Golden Mile, and some specific areas on the town, but it's a minority, okay? So if they cut all the license today on the Marbella city, that means that all these houses are going to be on the market for local people. It's impossible because most of the houses are second homes and the owner are going to use it at least 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. So it's quite a grown decision because this is, I will say that the impact. There are many studies. Pricewaterhouse did a study for ARB recently that the impact of the prices for long term of the holiday rentals is less than 3%, 2.3, 2.4. There is a problem of offer and demand.
Yeah.
In Spain, I would say only 3 or 4 points. To do the proceeding for a plan parcial take 10 years. The public administration did not do the proper job, and the prices of the model for social houses are still the same. Junta de Andalucía just changing now recently, but they didn't change for 17 years. So with the increase of the prices, it's not worth it for any developer to build social houses. So this is the main problem. Second problem is that every year we have more foreigners living here. Last year, 450,000 people, and the number of new houses, 120,000, okay? Something that the intention was good, but the result was really bad, is the La Ley de la Vivienda that it was approved for the national government 2 years ago, which they try to take care of the people that they cannot afford the rentals, and they give most of the protection to the vulnerable families to be able to stay in apartment even if they cannot pay. What that law did is that many of the owners did not feel protected, and they put the property out of the market. So only in Catalonia, in 1 year, the number of houses on the market for long term had been reduced 30%. So,
but haven't they gone some way to making that easier for owners and landlords now with the what we call the anti-squatter legislation? Hasn't that now gone more in favour of the landlord because they know that they're going to shut down the tourist rental market, so they want to make it a little bit easier for people or an incentive for people to rent their properties longer term?
Well, this law of anti-ocupa is a different kind of thing.
But isn't it linked in a way to make it easier to rent long term?
Not for the rental, because the thing is that this law is not applicable. These court procedures are not applicable to someone that didn't pay the rent. So these kind of eviction procedures are regulated under the same law, and the procedures with the courts are the same. So this new legislation doesn't really count on people that didn't pay or they are behind the rental. So they're really absolutely the same. So these are for squatters, so people that are occupying a property illegally. So that's a different kind of thing. I also have an opinion about what Jesus was saying. He made a very valid point about someone that has a home in Marbella or in Alicante, like a second home, is not willing to rent it out long term, because that will really take away his possibility of using that for 3 weeks on July, 1 week on Easter, etc. So how can you, limiting that person to rent out the property, are giving another property to long-term rental? It's never been the intention of using that property for long term, because therefore his holiday home is not his holiday home anymore, right? So that is really, there is one reality that legislation and legislator has to bear in mind. There is a big increase in tourism in Spain. The reason why is because if you analyze, hotel business daily rates are very, very lower now, because they are now competing with the new touristic offer from short term. That is not the case. If you look at the daily rate of any hotel, is really increasing day after day. So the hotel prices in every category, 3, 4, 5 hotels, is really very much more than before, even under a big competition with short-term apartments. That is why there are really more and more people that are able to give an occupation rate higher than it used to be, prices higher than they used to be for the hotels, and even with a very high occupation of short-term rentals. This is telling me something. There is more tourism. Tourism is the biggest sector of our economy in Spain.
Exactly. So are we in danger of damaging that biggest export effectively?
That is what I mean, actually. So if the biggest economic sector of our GDP is tourism, and we are effectively witnessing, like, prices of hotel industry are increasing and the occupation of short-term rentals is increasing, because there is something clear. There are more and more tourists coming over, and there are more and more people increasing the biggest sector of our Spanish economy. So that is really good news, actually. So therefore, having to cut the wings of our biggest sector of the economy by reducing the capacity of this will only create something. You go to use more and more hotels, and the inflation of the hotel is going to be unaffordable. It's going to be impossible.
The hotel industry must be loving this. In the last 2 weeks, we have had a lot of inquiries from big investment groups wanting to buy hotels.
In fact, the two groups in Spain who put on the table the problems of the holiday rentals, one had been the public administration, in my personal opinion, because they did not do their job, because the main problem of there is not enough houses is for the public administration and the politics in general, one. And the second group is the hotel lobbies. They have been working against the holiday rentals on the last few years really hard, because even as you say that they are increasing their prices, they want more business. And it is true, and it's obvious to see that the second homes, they get a percent of the business, and they want a little bit more. It's as simple as that.
Miguel, you're not so sure.
But the thing is, the prices are really escalating. The daily rate of hotel are escalating with non-stop.
Yeah.
Up to a point in which that inflation is going to become unaffordable. And then we're going to be realizing that we have
Nobody will come to Spain.
To fix a problem we have created the biggest problem,
Yeah.
which is an inflation, an escalation in prices in the hotel business that is going to be unaffordable. And therefore, that touristic destination that Spain is right now, and this is a fact because all hotels are full or more occupied than it used to be, and rental. So therefore, this is not going to happen anymore because the thing is there are not places to rent and hotels are unaffordable. So therefore, the destination is Spain is not going to be that attractive anymore, and we will have to go to Greece, Turkey, and many other destinations. So the thing is, in everything in economy, and my point of view, you have to create solutions respecting a certain balance and harmony in everything else, not creating that kind of a drastic decisions that are going to be affecting. So I don't believe that the legislator is bearing in mind what is really happening in the real economy today. That are the hotel prices that used to be. If you go to Madrid, is full of short-term rental touristic apartments. Okay, fine, fair enough. But the hotel price used to be 150, and the same hotel is now 350, and it's more full than it used to be.
And no, I will add something else. It's not only that the price of the hotels are going to be more expensive. It's not only that. It's also that there is a big percent of people who demand apartments that if there are no offer of apartment or villas, they change the destination because tourist concept change and the demand of apartments change and has been increased. And there are people that when they stay more than a week, they really want an apartment or a villa. They will not stay in a hotel. They will change destination.
Yeah, they will. I'm going to ask you, as two upstanding members of the Spanish community, I think I know what your thoughts are on tourism and the fact that it's the number one export of the Spanish economy, and obviously our businesses are intertwined with that. What do you think the general consensus of the whole Spanish population is? Do you think they've had enough of tourists, or do you think they're not being educated correctly to see the benefits of tourism? I know we're getting a little bit political here, but just while I've got two eminent Spaniards in the room, I thought I'd ask you what you think your country thinks of all this.
Well, I really believe that that people are really not well educated. Sometimes, these populist conclusions, they are very well listened by many people, and a little bit more or deeper economic analysis is not really so easily listened by other people, right? So if everybody in Malaga or in other cities, Cadiz, or places where we have seen that are really certain type of protest about it, are educated, this is really our economy. We have to regulate it, yes, but we cannot prohibit, because prohibiting something is going to from one extreme to the other, and the extreme are always producing very, very drastic consequences. So therefore, there is really very different analysis to be done. So why we are having a short deficit? I have my own opinion about it as well, because after Lehman Brothers global recession, we're not being able to produce the level of housing that was produced before that. And I'm not saying about the crazy years of 2001 to 2007, that was maybe too much. But before that, there was a number of properties that were created every year to keep a certain level of balance. Now we are in half of what it used to be. And when you do something like that, you create a housing deficit. Financing for a developer is a drama. The developers can only have very little financing from them. Therefore, they are not producing the number of units. The prices are, the capacity of authorities, administrations to produce buildable land is endless. It's endless. It's very bureaucratic. It takes forever. So therefore, the Spanish developers cannot really access to reasonable finance.
Because that's always the answer, isn't it? Oh, just build more houses, build more apartments. But actually, it's not that simple, is it?
The administrations, I would say, from our autonómicas, which is really regional, and also from town halls, are not really They're super bureaucratic, laws that are taking forever, reports are really one report after report and with timing. So everything is so bureaucratic that the capacity of producing buildable land is very little, and also very little finance. So the developers are so restricted with their capacity to produce houses that this is where the problem, and this will resolve a bit more the problem. And let's really hug with two big open arms the tourism, because this is our biggest economy. So therefore, let's really take advantage of our biggest economy and find solutions somewhere else.
Because we are in danger of killing this sector of the economy. I was going to ask you, Jesus, at the moment we have a socialist government, which means it leans to the left, which means it's normally aligned with helping the lower classes. If we had a right-wing government in Spain, which is the opposition party, isn't it? Do you think this would change? Do you think we'd go back to how it was? Do you think we'd have these restrictions on short-term rentals if we had a different political party in charge?
I really don't know. Is my question, because the public administration have a huge problem at the moment. Mm-hmm. It's a huge problem because they are not houses for young people, mm-hmm. or even middle-aged people. And to resolve these problems, it is possible, but they really need qualified professional people around them. They don't have the capacity. And I do think it's going to be better, definitely, because I have here, I didn't study in full details, but Junta Andalucía approved recently a law to be able to help a little bit the timing on the bureaucracy to be able to build social houses. So I do hope it's going to be better. But the problems, at the end of the day, the problem for be able to get houses for all the people is going to take many, many years. And I didn't hear yet one, doesn't matter the political party, who say in front of everybody on the TV, gentlemen and ladies, we have a huge problem and it's going to take 15 or 20 years to resolve it. Okay. Because this is the truth.
Okay. I'm going to ask you some fairly quick fire questions. So let's just go back to what we were talking about. So at the moment, to gain the express consent of a community, you need a 60% majority vote in favour of you being allowed to rent your property on a short-term basis. Correct, yes?
Yeah.
Does each owner have to get a separate consent, or is it a blanket consent across the urbanisation? Or don't we know?
I think one by one is going to be impossible.
Yeah, so if there's 200 owners at a community meeting and 10 of them want to rent out short term, does the one consent piece of paper cover all 10, or do all 10 have to apply individually?
The law didn't say anything about that.
Yeah.
The common sense, well, there is not a lot of common sense in all this mess, common sense say that will be all together in one or two annual meetings.
Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, well,
does it matter?
It's going to affect to everybody that is requesting. If this is permitted, it's going to be permitted by the administrator.
That's
so
it.
Everyone that is requesting that certificate, because he needs it for the registration, the administrator should be obliged to produce the same certificate for everybody.
So these AGMs now become super important for people who want to rent out, because it's going to be like political lobbying behind the scenes. They're going to have to get votes and proxies.
It's happening already.
Yeah. I can see because 60%. Again, I go back to the apathy argument. You know, a lot of people sitting in these meetings simply don't care. So a lot of people don't even go to meetings. The last one I had for 100 owners had 15 people. So is there the will? Is there, do people really care? Do people have an opinion on this?
Well, unfortunately for me, this had been my work on the last year. So I'm going to share my experience, okay? In communities where there are Spanish owners, I'm talking in general, Spanish owners who bought on the 80s, even on the 70s, and which they never had been considering to rent. They are against the holiday rentals. They don't give you a proper argument, but they don't want it. Okay, and the new generation of buyers that they bought on the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, some Spanish and mainly North European, they are in favors because they have a different way to think.
I think it depends what you bought your property for. I've been to 3 community meetings recently, and they all had a similar pattern. If you're living there full time, you don't want holidaymakers in your, living next door to you. If you've bought there as a holiday home, you don't, you do want that flexibility of being able to. So I think it depends on who you've got there. What I've noticed interestingly in certain communities is I've stood up at these meetings and said, look, it's my opinion as a real estate professional with 24 years experience in the market that if we don't allow holiday rentals, there's a real possibility of a devaluation of our properties. And it's amazing how much resistance you get to that. They say, no, you're wrong. Our values are going to go up because we only allow people to live here and we're going to have a much nicer community. I don't get that. I don't see that. What we've also tried to do on certain communities that I'm involved in is we've tried to limit. So we've done a minimum 7-night stay because it's been proven that a lot of trouble and disturbance comes from the shorter stays, the stag do's, the hen do's, things like that. They want a party for 2 nights. That's really what a hotel is for. And we've also we've given more guidelines to renters, behavior and stuff like that. But it's really interesting that there is a proportion of owners who firmly believe that, if they don't allow holiday rentals, the value of their property is going to increase. Do you agree?
I am not agreed at all. In fact, I am 100% convinced it's going to be the other way around this is very important, some areas of Marbella. Because as you say, one thing is buildings where the people are living all year round. And one thing is buildings where 90% or 80% of the owners are second homes. I have an experience already in a community in Playa del Duque, in Casas Cádiz, where they prohibit the holiday rentals last Easter in 2024, no, in 2025, 2024. Since then, 2 properties went into the market and they couldn't sell it. Both properties, especially one, have 3 offers, subject the 3 to be able to rent it out when the owner or the buyer are not going to use the property. Because for them, it's not only a second home. For a big percent, not all, but a big percent of buyers in these days, medium class, is not only a holiday home. It's a mix between finance products and second homes. And if they are not able, they're not going to buy.
Yeah.
So it's as simple as that. So I'm convinced that it's going to affect to the value of the property.
What about
in some particular areas? Puerto Banús, Nueva Andalucía, San Pedro Playa, Golden Mile.
The conversation I was having was at the Señoría de Marbella community meeting, and it's very interesting. The same applies for villa communities, doesn't it? So if you've got a house in La Zagaleta or El Madrigal, although you have a standalone villa, you are also part of a community. So do you need the express consent of that community, even if it's a villa?
When it's a community, it's a community. Okay. So it doesn't matter how big the common areas are, what kind of common areas and private areas you have. If you have a community, you have the same rules to respect. Yeah.
Okay. What if I'm sitting there at the moment in my apartment and I want to rent it this summer, and I have my tourist license? Yes, I have it from 2 years ago. Do I need to do anything?
Yes. You need there is a new law also.
Oh, there might be.
You need a registro único.
Okay, what's that?
This is coming from the CEE. The CEE say that all the countries need a registro único.
So this is the European Union?
Yeah. So in theory, must start in 2026, but the Spanish government decide that have to start in June 2025. And you need to get this number through the registered land office and give this number to the platforms to do the
Okay.
marketing through the
But
platforms.
surely, if I've already got the tourist license, that is a simple process.
Yeah, should be.
Should be.
In,
Should be.
in theory, I'm having problems also.
Can somebody stop me on the community? Can they say, your tourist license, it's 3 years old and we've just voted.
No. It's not happening.
Okay.
That is
so,
not happening.
So they can't apply any ban retrospectively.
that
retroactively.
I never see that.
Okay.
I never
What
see
about if I want to sell my apartment in Señoría de Marbella to Miguel and I have my tourist license? Can I just go, here's my tourist license, Miguel? Is the
No.
license for the property or for the owner?
No, it's really for the property and from the owner. So I am a new owner, and then I have to be facing the legislation that is enforced at the time and the moment that I am buying this property, and therefore I have to fully respect that. Okay, you had that license. You are respected because a retroactive, irretroactive activity of the law. But I am the new buyer. I am the new owner. There is a different legislation enforced, and I have to fully respect it. So therefore, unfortunately for me as a new buyer, I have to get the express consent.
But Miguel, come on, we can find a way around this. What if my rental license is in the name of my rental company? What if it's in the name of Jesús? Here you are, have it.
I have to buy the company. You mean
have to buy it.
No. He said if it is on the name of my company, in my experience.
Yeah, because you're my property manager.
I have
That's the grey area.
I have 7 cases, 8 cases like that, and as far as we understand, we need to apply because it's a new owner because the license.
Even if your name is on it as my management company and my rental company, I can't just give that to Miguel. How would they know?
Well, this is a good question.
Because that's the way around.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you how they're going to know. With the registro único, you need to renew the registro único through the registered land office every year.
Okay.
And they're going to see if the name of the owner on the title deed is different.
Okay, even though you're the person dealing with all the rentals and all the management and all the issues.
Yeah, and then you have as well an administrator that knows that the property A has passed from Sean to Miguel, and therefore
Come on,
he
I
knows
need a
that
way around. I need a fudge. What about if my rental license is in the name of a company because the company owns the apartment and you buy the company?
Yes, in that case, yes.
That's the way around.
that's the way around. Not everybody is prepared to buy a company.
But are we going to see more property purchases in company names to safeguard?
Honestly, although of course it's a grey area that has not been resolved by the law. Under my point of view, the UBO, so ultimate beneficiary owner of a company, is the owner of that property. Okay. And the ownership of that property has effectively passed from the UBO to a different UBO. So the shell of the company is the same, but the real owner of that company and consequently the property is different. So I'm afraid to say that to me is a different owner, even using this kind of company trick.
So is this going to stop overseas buyers from buying? I mean, you've already alluded to the fact that you're seeing evidence of that.
I can see that now weekly. And in my opinion, I can see that very easy. I start already, and I've been sharing this information with some lawyers. I don't know his opinion. This is mine at least. This is too new in general because it's the 3 of April. But in areas where are poor second homes, and I will say medium class between 300,000 euros and 1 million euros, is going to affect dramatically the number of sales. And if affect to the number of sales, are going to affect to the value. How much? The market will tell us how much. I don't know.
I know at the LPA we're considering having a list of all the developments on the Costa del Sol and whether express consent has been granted. That would be extremely useful because then if we have a client and the ability to rent out short term is important, we can then simply disregard the developments where there isn't any express consent. I guess that would be a good thing. And I guess the lawyers are going to have that as well, because it's going to be difficult for us, isn't it? Because clients are going to be reliant on their agent and on their lawyer to advise them on which communities have given express consent, which communities haven't. And that's going to become a big decision for a lot of buyers, and that's going to be the main thing. And it
Not for everybody, huh? But in the area that I just mentioned before, I think at least definitely more than 50%.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's interesting. And we must also tell people that there are plenty of communities out there who will allow holiday rentals and have expressed no desire to stop them. But obviously we now need their express consent to be able to rent short term. So it's interesting, but I think it comes down again to the fact that get an LPA member working with you, because they are more likely to be able to get the information needed so that you're not wasting your time looking at properties that are not going to be applicable for you. Are we in trouble here? Is there any good news on the horizon? Is there anything I can go home this weekend and celebrate, or is it all just doom and gloom?
I am always
You're always optimistic.
optimistic.
Me too,
Always. Okay, great.
So I really believe that we live a bit of a time of turbulences. This is really, I want to be always positive and optimistic, but of course I do accept when I have a flight of turbulences, right? So therefore, this is where we are right now. But I want to believe this is gonna go. The reason why is because the position of the administrators today to think that this is full prohibition of everything, and only after the AGM is sitting to permit. So that's really what they believe it should really happen. So they have to have that express permission and not express prohibition. So
Would you challenge that? So if I came to you and said, Miguel, they're not allowing me to rent my villa in Montemayor short term because the AGM is now next.
it's going to be
March.
challenged. It's going to be challenged by
because
me,
you're going to say that's just not fair.
But we're going to be still living this kind of turbulences period, I would say, because you can challenge that, but you don't have the answer of that in 24 hours. This is going to escalate to this, to that. It's going to take a time. So in the meantime, in a practical way, the administrators will still do that. And then for how long they will really stay with this interpretation, I don't know. It will be challenged by one to many hundreds of people, therefore different interpretations, different solutions, and therefore I would say that we are going to have a little bit of a better flight. But it's going to take months.
Jesus, you know what this means, don't you? Just more money for the lawyers. In and out of court every day. The Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court, they'll be at it for years, and then there'll be something else.
In my
comes
opinion,
along.
that is not an issue if the lawyer can resolve the problem. In my opinion, is that during a long time we are going to lose a lot of deals, a lot of sales.
It's sad.
Trying to be optimistic is that
Please
okay, there is a solution, and the solution is on the hands of the owners. So we have 50% of the solution because there is a solution. Let's talk about the other 50% of the solution. I think we need professionally get data of what is happening to all the lawyers and all the real estate, the number of sales that have been filed, what the buyers is saying, to have data. With this data, no opinion, with this data, we need to find a way to share it and be able to let the owners know what is happening on their community and how this mess can affect to the value of their properties.
Because they don't know this, do they?
They are not aware. And secondly, I am optimistic thinking that the solution is to allow holiday rentals, but with conditions. And the conditions are going to allow to do the management in a professional way.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, there are many owners taking care of their own property from London in Marbella, and they don't take care of the guests, and sometimes they do noise, and no one is taking care. So we are preparing that I can be able to share in LPA for all the members a list of conditions for all the meetings where we are going to go. For example, because there are noise monitors now that can be in each apartment, and this is linked to an office who is working 24 hours, and if there is any guest that the noise is higher than normally, they get a call But not only that, if the property is under management of a professional company, the professional company, they're working 7 days a week, 24 hours, and they can get attention of one member of the staff. But not only that, if when you do the checking, you explain to the guest that the deposit, because we do that in our office, the deposit is not only in case that they damage the furniture or the property, also is in case that we have a complaint and they will lose the deposit. I will say that only with these three, 90% of the complaints of the neighbor will disappear.
Yeah, I agree.
But not only that, we can increase a little bit more because the law allow to increase 5, 10 until 20. But I will say in our proposal is 10% the fees, the community fees for the people who do holiday rentals, to have a minimum of 7 days of a stay, as you say. All that together, I think is going to reduce the impact of complaints of neighbor and are going to allow to avoid to devalue the property. Because if you prohibit in a complex in Puerto Banús or in San Pedro Playa or in Golden Mile, the holiday rentals, in my opinion, is going to devalue because you're going to prohibit in a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But does not mean that one owner want to put in any portal like Idealista or to rent it out without a professional management. So it's going to be illegal offer. If you prohibit, it's going to be illegal offer with more noise, and it's going to devalue the property.
That would seem the common sense way, wouldn't it, Miguel? Do you agree with that? So more control, more regulation, but not prohibition.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do agree.
Anything else that you'd like to add? Has anyone? I'm leaning on you now to come up with some solutions as to how we can get around this issue. So work on that. I've given you 2 ideas. Keep saying no. We need to work on getting into the communities and telling people what the real effect of this is.
I do personally think that from a professional association as a LPA, we need to work out on the coming weeks because this is very new.
This is new.
With data, and share all the data and be able to explain to the owner what could happen because they are not aware.
Yeah. I think, look, we're used to having headwinds in this market, things that are sent to challenge us. If it's a COVID or a financial crisis or a law change or volcanic ash, there's always something. And this is another little slap in the face. I do feel we'll get over it. I do feel that we'll end up in courts for the next 1 or 2 years with communities challenging and owners challenging. Less.
Maybe less.
Will you get it sorted quickly?
Yeah. Normally the reality of the pragmatism of the buyers and the vendors and market will really be quicker than court resolutions are. Yeah. So the reality of facing the drop of the price and difficulties to find a buyer and all these kind of things do happen more quickly than a court resolution at Supreme Court or really high level court. So that's really where my hope is.
I agree 100%, but professional organization have something to say to be able to do it quicker.
I think this is all heading. I think this is a bump in the road. It's a little painful, but I think that over time, I think what will happen is there'll be more regulation, more control, which will be beneficial for the professionals in the industry. But I think we're going to get there in a slightly painful way. That's my feeling, and I do think that it wouldn't surprise me at all if some of these laws that have been introduced are looked at again sooner rather than later, because I do think they're penalising the wrong people and will end up damaging the Spanish economy in the long term. But anyway, we're getting into political stuff. Listen, thank you so much for joining us. I think we could have gone on and on and on today about this because it's a really big issue at the moment. So Jesus, Miguel, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your contributions. And thank you for listening, watching, and we will be with you next time.